Schools across the UK have been closed since the 20th of March. New measures in the form of a £1 billion catch-up package to help pupils catch up with what they have missed during the COVID-19 crisis were announced by the government on the 19th of June. Homeschooling during the pandemic has varied hugely across different households, as has the approach taken by different schools. I spoke with one secondary school teacher about his experience of teaching during the lockdown.
And so my experience of teaching during lockdown has been that, for the most part, just as a regular science teacher, I've been setting, distributing, and feeding back on work. And for younger key stages, so key stage 3 for me as a secondary teacher, I've not been doing live lessons. I've been doing a few live lessons recently for year 10 and year 12, but the focus has definitely been on basically providing a set of lessons for them to do independently. And then me chasing them up to see if they've done it, giving any feedback on the lessons that they do return, and just making sure that everybody's accessing the work. In terms of the impact on students, I think there'll definitely be set back in terms of content learned, particularly in science, which is quite a facts and theory-driven subject. They will be set back a little bit. I think it's more harmful for the younger years who have had difficulty accessing all of the online stuff independently.
A separate national tutoring programme worth £350 million has also been announced to increase access to high-quality tutoring for disadvantaged pupils. Labour has criticised the plans as lacking in detail. I spoke with the leaders of a tutoring charity to find out their views.
So Students for Students was founded 5 years ago in Oxford. We set it up based on the back of a report which said that 1.2 million children would leave primary school unable to read, write, or do basic numeracy by 2020. Fortunately, we're now in 2020 and those figures haven't been borne out, but it's still 1 in 5 pupils leave primary school without reaching their minimum standards, and only 1/3 of children from poorer backgrounds are likely to leave school without or with those skills. So again, it's not just an issue of pupils leaving school unable to read or write, but it's also a massive social mobility because it's pupils from poorer backgrounds. So we set out to kind of combat this educational inequality by training university students to become tutors. Tutoring during lockdown period has actually been incredibly difficult. We took a long time to work out how we could offer it. It's involved reviewing all of our child safety, which has been kind of quite a big process to make sure that what we're doing is safe. But it's also involved having to buy and invest new technology that we just didn't have to do. So providing schools with laptops, which when we first set out, we never thought we'd have to do. But actually it turns out that a lot of schools' IT simply isn't good enough, which was quite a surprise to us. So there's been a lot of things and hurdles that we just didn't anticipate that sort of in the 21st century you'd expect would work, but just haven't. It's been a bit sort of a catch-22. Schools have said, yes, we want your help, and definitely been sending lots of signals that they need our support. But when we actually try to implement things, the logistics of doing so have made it really difficult. So it's kind of a weird scenario where they're saying they want it, but not necessarily, or it's not necessarily as easy to implement it, which has been difficult. But we are definitely seeing that come September, when schools are reopening, we're expecting to be deluged with all the schools that perhaps weren't able to have tutoring online. We're going to be super busy.
To say, I haven't seen the full details of the scheme. I do think it's a very positive step in general. I think this is something that the state should be providing support with in our education environment. So I think in general terms, I'm supportive, but I'll be interested to see how they undertake that tutoring, what focuses they have for the teaching, and so on, to see if it's a beneficial project.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Joe, I think the intent is great. but the finer details will be what's interesting. From what I've read, will be given some discretion about what's interesting, because with other kind of pressures on their budget, it will, how restrictive what they spend it on will depend. And the other key thing, I think, is it's only for 1 year. And I think we would be kidding ourselves if we think that 1 year, yes, 1 year's worth of tutoring will be valuable, but I don't think that will be the long-term solution. This is going to have an impact that will play out over many years. And I think the only way to do that is a long-term, consistent level of support. So I wait to see what happens will not only in the next year, but also subsequent years after that, to ensure that this isn't just a flash in the pan, quick support.
I agree. I think the need for supplementary tutoring in schools was heightened by coronavirus, but it existed before. So I hope it doesn't come to be seen as a temporary pandemic-related measure.
Schools are currently set to reopen in September, but there are remaining health concerns, particularly surrounding the return of older children. The government has warned that pubs and non-essential shops could be closed again to allow schools to open their doors.